This is a soul fire production. Music, hear me now. This is a soul fire production.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Some of you and peace out to the rest of you. Y'all know what to do. Hit the share button because the message is more important than the messenger. And I want to give a shout out to A. Dean for coming through on the Cash App yesterday. Or was the day before yesterday? I guess it depends on which time zone and in which one was sitting. I want to give a shout out to all of my BlackStreon subscribers, but they don't want me mentioning them by name. So I will fuck the shuck up about their names, but shouts out to you. You know who you are, and I really do appreciate the support. I canceled or made no longer eligible one particular tier because I was only available for the first month. So if anybody signs up for the lower tier, then within usually within a day, between 24 to 36 hours after you subscribe, they will refund you. I don't know how long the access will last after that, but there are certain things that I'm not even making available to the lower tier until it, for now, because it still shows up. Even I can see it, but eventually it won't. And until that point, there are certain things I don't even allow to be shown on that one. But because that was offered as a deal for only the first month. I got more stuff coming for the BlackTreon towards the end of this week, inshallah. Because hey, y'all paid for it. Y'all bought first class tickets on Jet Black Airways. That's what BlackTreon is. Walaikum salam, Aisada Muhammad. Now, let's see. It is Saturday morning for most of you, and so early Monday morning, my time, which will be Saturday evening, Sunday evening, your time, will be the Black Manosphere Show of the Week. I already recorded what I'm going to upload to make available for the Black Manosphere Show of the Week. I recorded it before I knew that that was going to be the episode. So when you hear that, it's not going to sound like it was for the purpose of being the Black Manosphere Show of the Week, but that's exactly what the wuck it is. Now it is. I'm going to talk about, in that one, about Black populations in the future and about Black populations, meaning what's in store, what is now sitting ahead of us, whether it happens or not. But it's going to, it's sitting in front of us right now with this point, 3 things that I've noticed. And this is going to be about the Black population, not just Black American, not just the continent, not just the islands, not just the Afro-Latinos, but about the Black population. That's what that's going to be about. I'm going to address what it means that Wode Maya and his girlfriend Trudy have presented a plane ticket to a Jamaican 12-year-old and her dad to go to Kenya. But that's going to be on tomorrow, Black Manosphere Show of the Week. There have been a few things that have been going on, and I haven't been able to go live largely because of time and the internet access I've had at home. But shouts out to my girlfriend. God bless that Black woman. And for those of you who don't know, ask somebody else in here why I would talk about my girlfriend and I'm a serious Muslim. I'm not saying I'm a good Muslim, but I am a serious one. So you can ask someone that does know me well from the audience, why is this guy talking about his girlfriend and he's Muslim? They'll tell it to you. You go ahead and ask. I'm going to continue on with what I was saying. So the love of my life came to visit me last week, her first time coming to visit me in the city in which I now live and work. Before that, since I've been forced to live away from her, I would go back up to our old city where she still lives and works, or we would meet up in Riyadh, where I was working for about a year. And shouts out to two brothers there, B Deep and Mr. Hausawi. Assalamu alaikum, Yakuke, Najida de Jinku, Kome Bature Yache. So be about peace and pleasure. I mentioned Hausa a lot, and that's true, because here there are Hausawiyin, or there are Hausa people, and they're citizens. They've been here for generations. They did not come here in bondage. And some of them even owned people back when it was legal to own folks. Gail at night, I will tell her, most certainly. So yeah, what you heard be about peace and pleasure was me addressing two Hausa brethren in Hausa, even though both of them are actually still learning it. The thing is that the Hausa generally live in Jeddah, Mecca, and Medina. And so they're more likely to speak Hausa there. And this is something a lot of people don't know. But the Hausa and the Falata that live in Jeddah and Mecca and Medina live in that what you call the Hijaz region. They actually speak Arabic outside and Hausa at home in many cases. So they grow up with the language, both of them. Some of them are trilingual. They speak Hausa, they speak Arabic, they speak English. You also have Soninke people. Now, if you were from Gambia or Senegal, you've heard of the Soninke, also called the Serahuli. They used to be the guards of the old Mali Empire, actually. They are also here. One of the family names for them is Ajabi. And I met two of them, actually. Now, my mother, because she's Creole, descends partially from the Soninke. When I found out that there were Soninke, the two that I met on Hajj, this is when I met them, I did a double take. I was like, wait, y'all are Soninke? And they said, yeah. So I said, okay, hold up. How do you say thank you in Soninke? Because I remember that word is nobody. And they said nobody. So I knew they must have been Soninke. And I stood up and I said, those are one of my mother's ancestral tribes. And they hugged me. Well, the one that was there in the room at that time gave me a hug. Now, the non-Black Arabs in the room were sitting up looking like, what the F is this? They weren't angry, just they didn't understand it. But one of them in the room actually did know some Black history. And he said, yeah, they were the old guards of the Mali Empire. And some of them were kidnapped by people that were fighting on the coast. And they were taken across the Atlantic into the Americas. He said, the baldhead guy here from the US is a descendant of one of them. He's meeting one of his cousins for the first time. This is like a family reunion. He said this to the others. And some of them said, oh, mashallah. One said, well, the important thing is that they're Muslim and we're on Hajj. So he tried to downplay the Black unity aspect of it, but he wasn't even trying to be mean. And others said to him, well, yeah, of course he's Muslim. He's here in Mecca. What you expect? But he just met his relatives. So in all honesty, this notion of Blackanoia that we have is exaggerated. It's good that we don't expect sympathy or help from other people, but it's more like we don't have understanding from them. So we tend to exaggerate how against us other people can be. We think that everyone else is unified and is against us when in fact, a lot of people are divided in terms of how they view us. I've covered this multiple times. But today, what I'm going to talk about are Negropeans, sellouts, whether they be from the FBA ranks or they're from another nationality. I don't want to be up too late because it's already about to be 8 p.m. where I am. So it's not in my best interest to stay up too late, too long. But I do want to give you all some substance. Even though I have a Blacktreon paid subscription, I still want to give you all some substance. I'm going to tell you that there's a spectrum of selling out. There are those many, even here, there are many who just don't feel much sense of pride in being distinct as Black people. It bothers them that we're distinct. They don't walk around hating us, but they just don't feel that sense of pride. They don't really want to harm us per se, but they wouldn't mind if they woke up one day and they were no longer Black or no longer recognizable. And they would not understand why I would be so proud of our origin. Why I might say to them, do not allow your kids to not grow up with the Barnaby language or the Hausa language or the Fulani language. Oh yeah, there are people from Borno. Borno's northern Nigeria, close to Lake Chad. There are many people here whose last name is Barnaby, and they still speaking on the phones with each other. I've met them. They're here. They were some of my best students. One of them, I remember, one of them, he was one of my better students in Riyadh. Dude was cold when it came to English. And he had a few errors, but what I picked up on was that oftentimes women and my Black students would fix their errors first. My most improved students in general were the ones who also could speak classical Arabic because it has rules of grammar. And they would simply apply them to English when I would teach them, and they would fix the errors the most quickly. They were the most quickly to improve, the fastest to improve, fix their mistakes. They repeated the mistakes the fewest times after they learned the correction. I'd have to tip my hat to them. But the second best were generally going to be Black students and lady students. So Black female students, in most cases, were the ones that were the most serious, and they would fix their errors, or they came in with good English from jump. I remember one from Jeddah. This is in Riyadh, but she was from Jeddah. Her mother was an English teacher, and she had picked it up and was doing quite well at it. Another one was Somali, like my wife. She was a Saudi citizen, but her last name was Somali. And I remember my wife getting on the case, not in person, but saying to me when she saw the list of students, because I was marking, they call grading marking here. I was grading something they had done. Actually, they had to rap or recite poetry. They could choose which one, but it had to be one or the other. They had to rhyme in English and be coherent. And I was marking, and she said, "Who's that?" And I said, "This is one of my students, just like all the other names on here. I mean, what do you think she is?" And then she said, "Yeah, but that last name is not one of our last names." And that's true, because Somalis from Somalia don't ever have the last name of Somali. But she did. And that's because when she got naturalized, when her ancestor got naturalized as a citizen, that became their last name. So instead of having a tribal last name, her last name is Somali. It happens also to some of the Sudanese that were nationalized and became citizens 2 generations ago here in Saudi. Their last name became Sudani. So in any case, she was excellent in it. She was correcting the others. So we're generally speaking pretty talented. I bumped into a 30-year-old Falata woman. She was the one that wanted to know if she could see me outside of work. And I politely said, the best place to see me is here at my job, because that is. And I wasn't trying to have a girlfriend outside of my wife. Dang it, I done gave away who my girlfriend is. Oh man, I messed up. For the ones that don't know me, I was trying to troll. But anyway, but I can say this: when it came to being bilingual, she was good at it. We're talented. People know this. Yeah, they absolutely know this. After work on Thursday, when I got back home from work, my wife and I took quite a drive, actually, so that we could get to Dammam, or the Dammam general area, and then we could go across the bridge into Bahrain. We went there for a comedy show. Trevor Noah and Kevin Hart did a comedy show in Bahrain. Kevin Hart did not mention Cat Williams in the comedy show. Trevor Noah did not. They mostly joked about how clean Bahrain was and how it was so nice there that when a homeless guy asked one of them for change, he said to the guy, "Man, you look great. This must be your first day being homeless. Why don't you give me some change?" And a guy handed him the equivalent of $20 US. Now, that was the opening act. Somebody whose name I cannot remember because it was my first time seeing. But all three of them are us, representing different nationalities. A Haitian American was the opening act. Friends with Trevor Noah. And I guess now with Kevin Hart too. And then there's Trevor Noah. Walaikum salam, Robert Campbell. What's going on, man? Lion the MGTOW, what's good, man? You know what? That's true. Valid point, Lion. Absolutely. And we're going to get on them too. All this talent that we have, it just seems to be inborn. And they were cracking people the up. Of course, in the crowd, a lot of them were not only black, but specifically Black Americans. I didn't realize how many of us were in Bahrain. I mean, there are buckets of us in Bahrain. Black folks that are also American. I could tell by the baseball caps and the way they were talking and the wave caps. I could tell. You see, when you see one Black American alone, you may or may not know. You're not really sure. When you see a few of us together, that's when you can really tell. But then again, I can also say that distinction applies to Nigerians specifically. I'll sit up and say, these are Nigerians. Okay, they're either from the center or the south. Okay, now they're from the north. That it's true about them too. Then again, same thing with Jamaicans. Some nationalities just got a lot of swag to them. That's just true. I've seen that. But I say that to say that there are people that are now, and they've been there for a while. What they're trying to do is they're trying to undermine what it means. They're trying to undermine what it means to be Black. What they want to do is they want to say that there's not really anything special about it. Now, some of us say this because of a defeatist attitude. It's not hatred, it's just feeling defeated. But there are others who say this because they really don't want us to perceive any reason to be proud. And I'm beginning to hear this. It's funny because I'm beginning to hear this coming from different corners. Now I'm beginning to hear this in different accents. And I understand. I mean, I do believe in racial equality, so I don't sit up and say that we were born superior, that our DNA is made us superior per se. It makes us older. That makes us more distinct. I mean, we can't blend in interracial crowds. We can only blend in an all-Black environment. And even then, there's so much genetic diversity amongst us that a person from a completely different part of the continent might stand out, might not. It could go either way, depending on where you are. But I'm beginning to hear from multiple corners now that, well, you know, being black is nothing special. And if anything, there are reasons to be ashamed because of our failures and everybody else's successes above us. And that everybody else has their stuff together. And what I want to tell you is one thing about this selling out, this cooning. It's one thing I'm beginning to pick up on about this cooning. This cooning is matriarchal. There is absolutely nothing about this cooning that is normal, that is, yeah, when I think about it, there's nothing about this cooning that is that's patriarchal or normal for black men. Nothing. I'm not saying black men can't be coons. I'm saying that this is not where it starts. And in all honesty, it doesn't start necessarily with women. It starts with little girls who have to occupy the positions of grown women, and they ain't ready. I'm a firm believer that whenever it is that our people have been sold out, and it's been a so-called sister that did it, that they are also disgracing the women that don't sell us out. I mean, I look at what Harriet Tubman tried to do. And now I don't remember anything that Harriet Tubman said that was treachery to us and selling us out. I don't remember anything like that. But what I can tell you is that there have been others like Sojourner Truth who pretty much are ready to throw us under the bus. Those who really want white womanhood so badly are the main ones that start this. They are, I would say that I dare say they're the root of it. That's the crux of what I wanted to say about these Negropeans. They are coming from a standpoint of oftentimes justifying, either directly or indirectly, justifying the myth of white womanhood and Miss Anne syndrome and the wish of the women from whose wombs we come to be white women. Salute, Senor Kanga. ¿Cómo está? I forgot how to say in Portuguese, good to see you again. I could say it in Spanish, but that's not something that, that wouldn't be fair to you. I'm talking about, ironically enough, sellouts. Black folks of any nationality with European minds. Adrian Aquarius. Let me put this up there. That is everything. Es bom te ver. Yes, es bom te ver. In Spanish, we would say es bueno verte. So we would put you after C. But I understand this even with the order changed up. All right, so wondering why I can't see comments in here, but all right, there we go. There we go. Adrian Aquarius. Queen Nzinga was not a hero. She wanted to enslave black men and make her tribe a matriarchy. Notice black men were here first. Yeah, Adrian Aquarius. Queen Nzinga was, and you have this also confirmed by somebody that knows the history of that region even better than I do. Queen Nzinga, let me tell you how bad she was. Now, she was not the first one to deal with the Portuguese, from my understanding. The issue was that she decided that she wanted to also be a man. She was one of the original people to act like being a black woman is the worst thing on the planet. It's probably because she didn't know how those Portuguese treated, and Europeans in general treated their own women and regarded their own women. She probably had no clue. So she would have some men that would accompany her just to get down on all fours so that she could sit on their backs as she talked to these Europeans. So not only when she was talking to the Portuguese did she want to impress them, but she had in her mind, hey, you know what? In addition to this, let me also go on ahead and fart on one of my own men's backs while I'm doing this. Because she was nasty like that. I mean, in all honesty, let me tell you what else she did. This will really blow your mind. Queen Zinga, and I was shocked to read this. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say who it is that told me about it. I don't have his permission to blow up the spot like this, but I also read it to confirm later on. Queen Nzinga was taking, and I mentioned this before, how she took her male concubines and she called them male wives. And in doing so, she had them wearing women's clothes, and she would take these two of them at a time and pit them to fight each other to the death so that she could lay down with the winner. She pitted them against each other as gladiators for her funky, musty axe wound for a night. So imagine that as a male concubine, in order to consummate a so-called marriage, if you will, with your so-called wife, because she's calling you a male wife, or your female husband, that you got to get up there and fight with another man of the same harem who may have been nice to you and may have been a friend to you. That's some gladiator stuff. You lock these men up, they learn to get along with each other, then you take two of them and pit them against each other in the ring for everybody's entertainment. Only in this case, it was for her sexual arousal. That's her foreplay. This is why it is that I don't sit up and glorify when you put ladies in positions of leadership over their men. For one, we have it in our hadith that that's not ladies' job to do. We don't have it in our religion that they're inferior, but we do have it in our faith in the form of a hadith that even if you, it's not that they can't be ministers, but you do not put the ultimate responsibility for leadership of a people, of a nation, on their shoulders. Ain't their job to do. And what happened? That's exactly what it was that they did in Portugal. I mean, not in Portugal, but where the Portuguese colonized eventually, which was Angola and the Congo. Same thing, something happened with Dahomey, and I'm going to tell you what it was, because see, you have history repeating itself. In the Congo, I'm sorry, why did I say that? Nzinga was in the Congo, you had her, but in the Dahomey kingdom, what people don't know is that the Dahomey actually did not start off being this aggressive warrior expansionist tribe. They weren't this way in the beginning. They were conquered by the Yoruba under an empire that was called at that time the Oyo Empire. So when the Yoruba ruled them, apparently the Yoruba ruled them harshly. Now you meet Yoruba people today, and they're not walking around just expansionists and believing that everybody else is inferior and needs to be conquered. But the Dahomey, especially the ladies, started this whole thing of never again, and you men got conquered, and we're going to make sure this never happens again. And so what did they do? Well, you already know, the woman king. And that was a damn lie. They didn't fight against slavery. They fought in order to keep it going after the Europeans said no more. That's what they really did. And yes, the parts about their women being all these warriors, and yeah, that part was true. They had a guard of women that was supposed to be celibate, and they were brutal. Sometimes what they did was they would cut off the jawbones of males and parade them around without a lower jaw to terrorize the people to comply. Oh, they were cold-blooded. But what it came down to was them feeling that The men had sold them out because someone else came along and conquered. That's how that started. Like, because someone else came along and conquered you, you sold out the women. But this notion of the Negropean, the sellout, well, that's now across the board. That's not limited to one, but it tends to be renewed specifically by gynocrats, matriarchs, hyenas. Pretty much looking at Europeans and saying, I want what they have. Because they had guns. They really didn't have much else to trade, to be honest. A few things that they can make, but those things were generally expensive back in Europe. That's the truth of the matter. Some mirrors, things like that, but for the most part, when I think about this, it tends to come down to, I want what Miss Ann has, and if you don't get it, then I'll sell you out. The funny thing is that the Dahomey Kingdom was actually on the same coastline as the phenomena about which that white woman wrote a book called Daughters of the Trade, and I haven't read the whole thing. Matter of fact, I don't have a copy of it. I don't think I can get it here. But I've been hearing enough about it. At first, I had doubts about it because it was a white chick from Europe that wrote it. I thought, well, I mean, they don't always tell you the truth about Africa. Didn't they say it was nothing but a bunch of jungles and savages to justify what they were doing? Did they tell the truth then? That's what I was thinking at the time. I hesitated to believe it. And then there were many men that came out and said, no, I'm pro-Black. I've been Pan-African for years. And what she's talking about actually was real. Because the records that she studied from were records that were kept not only by the Europeans, but also by the people themselves from the coast. And in order to talk about Negropeans, I'm going to have to talk about a lot of these fathers too. These fathers that believe that their daughters deserve the world. These fathers that suffer from DLPS, Daddy's Little Princess Syndrome. I'm a father of daughters and I love them, but I can't afford to suffer from that. If I suffer from that, I'll pass that on to the little girls, one of whom is now an adult. Am I going to contribute to the problem if I do that? Absolutely, I would. I have to be realistic with him about what the world actually thinks it owes him and what it thinks it does not owe them and what the world does not owe them. I have to be honest with him. You are special to me. I have to tell them, your mother and I think you're special. Your brother thinks you're special. Your grandparents think you're special. To the rest of the world, you ain't special. And you will have to compete. Yes, even for a man. Yes, even if your mother says that no man is worth the competition. Yes, you will have to. And you especially are going to have to compete for any kind of man you could understand any woman wanting. So when you have, what I want you to do is understand that the Negropean is the one that does or says anything that's going to hold us back. It's not someone that disagrees with me, and it's not somebody with whom I disagree, and that's the definition. I mean, I do disagree with them, obviously, but what I'm saying is that when they are holding back our people, than they are Negropeans. So I'm going to give you examples of Negropeans. The misandrist gynocrat hyenas are, of course, Negropeans. I mean, they got Miss Anne syndrome. And what do they always say? Well, they're always saying that every other race has their stuff together, and we're the only group of people that are as bad off as we are, without ever traveling, without ever visiting these places, without even making friends from these groups of people. They say this. That tells you right off the bat there. They've got a Negropean understanding. They want to have what they think the white woman has. Now, it's okay to want what Europeans actually have, and actually, you should want better than what they have. That's really the case. But, and I'm a firm believer that the black world, not just black America, not just the islands, not just the continent, I'm a firm believer that the black world is owed. That Europeans that the colonizers from Europe can never finish paying back what it is that they owe, because they owe it to us to build Wakanda for us. They can't do it, but that's still what they owe. So they're never going to be done paying. There's no point where they're going to be done paying. If we enslaved them for 500 years, they wouldn't be done paying. The Arab world is in the process of paying. They got colonized. They've been getting their periodic inward wake-up calls. So they didn't completely get away with this stuff. That's why I do believe that the Western European civilization, the WWW, white Western world, is still worse than the Middle East and the adjacent lands. I still believe that. Not because I'm Muslim. I'm not letting lighter-skinned Muslims off the hook because we got the same religion. It's because they actually have had to pay periodically. I don't think they're finished either. I think they owe us for every time they use the word slave to mean black. I think they owe us for even calling themselves white. Knowing what the hell these things mean to us and telling us at times, well, you have a victim mentality. No, we don't have a victim mentality. We were the victims, just like you were. Just like the people, your cousins in Palestine, are victims right now. What, you gonna tell them they got a victim mentality? Sometimes they'll say this to them, but if they do say this to a Palestinian, they say it in private to someone that they know. They don't just get out in public and say, well, y'all got a victim mentality. Stop complaining about what they're doing to you. They don't do that to Palestinians. Newsflash, a lot of Arabs don't like Palestinians. A lot of them dislike them. They may not hate them, and almost no Arab believes that what they're going through is justified. Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Tika Harden. What's good? A lot of Arabs believe that what the Palestinians are going through is brutal, it's nasty, it is not justified, but they don't like them and they don't trust them. They believe that they're treacherous. That's why I don't let them off the hook when they say to us, well, don't have a victim mentality. And I say to them, no. See, I might be willing to be here in this particular country of yours because I am safe. That's why. So I'll fuck the shuck up because I'm safe. About certain things, I'm not going to blame you for what you didn't do. But don't get it twisted, Mr. Arab, as Omar Johnson will call you. And that's when I will believe, that's when one of the few things I will believe that Omar Johnson says, although he exaggerates it too. I'll say, look, don't get it messed up. You get your N-word wake-up call every so often. But what I find is that even over here, there are black women that look at non-black men and say, that's what I want. Specifically because they're not black, because they feel that the worst to be in the world is a black woman. Yeah, that exists here. You'd be shocked. The men don't walk around here thinking that way, but there are women that do. Here, black Saudi women that feel this way and prefer non-black men if they can get them, but they can't get them. So in any case, Of course, the misandrous hyena is one example of the Negropean. She sits up and tells black men, get out there and bum rush the fortresses of white supremacy so that you can get shot to death in the process, and then we'll inherit what you were fighting for. That's one. She also does something else. She raises her sons to die or to go to prison, to either get buried in the cemetery or buried alive in a cell block. She raises the sons for that. She doesn't just raise the daughters to become future baby mamas. She raises the sons to become stereotypical in 19s. And if he's stereotypical enough in 19 enough, then he'll become genetically, reproductively, sexually successful, and she'll have grandkids genetically. But she can have that through her daughters anyway. So that's one Negropean. The other Negropean is going to be the simp, whether it's her dad or someone else, that will actually make excuses for them that they would not make for black men. I'm going somewhere with this. I'm on land this jet black aircraft, but I'm going to speed it up because you're being nice and you're bearing with me, and I'm already 47 minutes in. You know, Christopher Clipper, I wish I could get a copy of that book over here. That's one book I know the bookstores here are not going to carry, and it's not even going to be because they're biased. It's just one of those books that doesn't make it over here. But another, these men that refuse, they insist on correcting us and will not correct him. So when you see these panda bears and you hear them, they're also Negropeans. Walaikum salam, Charles Irby. I don't think Russell Wilson meant to be a Negropean, to answer your question, T-Star. Or T-Dot, I'm sorry. I don't think that he meant to be, but nonetheless, he wound up serving the same purpose. I got to think about whether he qualifies for that or not. But Omar Johnson damn sure does. Oh, yeah, Prince of Pan-Africanism qualifies as a Negropean at this point because of the purpose that it serves. You see, if you were going to support anything that is going to put the community the way that it is, keep the community the way that it is, then you are a Negropean and you just may not know it. But people who think that they're Pan-Africanists are Negropean. So when I get up and I say that there's only one God, just one God, and I say that Muhammad ibn Abdullah, peace and prayers be to his benefit, on his behalf, is his last of a line of prophets and messengers, to Omar Johnson, I'm a sellout for the Arab. Even though that's not something I even let them think that I'm going to be for 1 second, and they don't ask for it. But then he turns around and tells us that we black men that are not niggers don't have a right to have our own genetic lineage. Oh no, that's just for the stereotypical niggerilla jigaboos that act out every white supremacist fantasy, who do everything that is stereotyped about them in the minds of our worst enemies except swing from trees. That's the only thing their asses ain't doing. They done traded in a grass skirt for sagging jeans and traded in spears for guns and bullets. And when they act like that, as far as Omar and those like him are concerned, that's okay. They have the right to have their own genetic legacy because they're buck Negroes. But when you come out and you are not one of these stereotypes, some savage out of a Tarzan movie, you don't have that right. You need to go and raise someone else's. So in all honesty, I see Russell as being a victim, even if he is a Negropean. I got to decide, think about that. But you know what? I do see him as a victim because he's many of us were. Russell was taught the same thing that many of us were taught. And his mom might not have taught that to him. But you know what his mom did not do? His mom obviously did not sit him down and say, listen, son, you're going to come to a point because of the way that we are. You're going to come to a point where that's going to be all that's available. You might as well go on ahead, skip that white woman because she's going to do stuff to you if she can get away with it, which is true. That's what she did. And his mom didn't tell him and leave these sisters alone because they're going to look at somebody like you and say, you don't deserve your own lineage. And the only reason Sierra Wilson probably hadn't left him by now is because she was imprinted by a guy that's similar to Russell. So she went back to her old imprint, which is probably easier than trying to re-imprint after you only, pardon me for saying this, have fucked dudes like Future. And Future wasn't always the way he is now. Oh, he remade himself for his music career. And the funny thing is, these sisters ate that up. That's the funny thing about it. Oh, they ate it up, and now he's this prolific baby daddy, and he ain't even really truly the guy that they were checking for like that. And you know, the ones who teach us to be stepdads definitely are Negropeans. Absolutely. I'm also going to tell you another type of Negropean. I would talk about the FBAs that make fun of every other nationality of Black folks just because they're not American. I would talk about them, but one, I don't come across those who actually do that just for that reason. Now, do I come across or did I meet ignorant FBAs when I was growing up? Yes, in the teenage years. As an adult, I didn't really run across too many of them that much. Now, I met those who would roast anybody, American or any other Black nationality. They do it to roast being funny, but they did not actually hate anybody. I got a cousin who'd roast anybody if you're Black. He loves Black Brazilians, Afro-Latinos. He'd still roast them for fun. But then again, I'm his cousin. He roasted me for being Creole, and he's Creole. But he roasted me because I look like it. He looks Sudanese. That's one of my favorite nationalities. I roasted him, though, just to roast him. And I even said, man, you can't even make up your mind. You look Indian one day and Sudanese the next, man. What's it going to be, bro? I told him that his appearance changed with the humidity. Just to roast him. But it's roasting. So I can't really get on him too much because what I'm seeing is that type of thing stopped in middle and high school. Was it wrong back then? Absolutely. But I'm going to get on those who have been beating the drums of division, not distinction, but division. I'm going to roast all of them. I'm going to call them Negropeans. If you were going to talk about the distinctions between different nationalities of Black folks, because we are a varied race, hats off to you. That's normal. Shouts out to Wode Maya. If you were going to sit up and just roast, just because you are a Negropean, and frankly, what I'm finding out is that there have been those who come from outside of the U.S. and then they start roasting Black Americans or talking down on African Americans. And when they do this, they're even disgracing their own people because most Black folks that are not American don't actually sit around talking down on African Americans. Ask me how I know. They don't generally do that. Now, there'll be times when they'll say, well, I disagree with this. I've had them voice disagreements, but them just sitting up talking down, no, whether they know I'm African American or not, I have not seen this. What I've actually seen is that there will be times when if you're not Black or they think you're not Black and you say something, they will defend Black Americans when there are none of us in the room that they knew about. Ask me how I knew that. So you got the ones that are sitting up here talking all this crap and they're getting press. And what they're doing is they're messing it up for their own people that don't do this. They're Negropeans, because what are they doing? They're not wrong because they address the distinction. They're wrong because they beat the drums of division, and this is not something that their own people are paying them to do. These are not popular opinions among non-FBA black folks. That's the thing about it. This notion that black Americans are lazy is not a popular opinion amongst Jamaicans or Trinidadians or Bajans or Nigerians or Ghanaians or Somalis. Is it an opinion? Yes. Is it a popular opinion? No. I would have known about it by now if it was. It's not. So when you got these folks sitting up, got the nerve to go into the United States and Canada and talk down on the black Americans and Canadians, you're Negropeans, even by the standards of your own people. Now, there's one tribe I've mentioned before in Nigeria, one particular tribe, and they don't mind saying anything. They'll talk all kinds of cash crap. Now, we African Americans like to roast. We'll roast people that we like my cousin does with me and I do with him. We roast for fun, and it could be with the people that we love the most. We do the most roasting. But there's a group that tends to do something similar. But the thing is that they actually are known even in Nigeria for being rude and looking down on everybody, having an exceptionalist mindset about themselves. One particular group, just one, but you know what? I'm going to sit up and say it. When they do this, when they represent themselves, when they behave this way and they represent themselves, I'm going to tell you now, they are Negropeans. I don't care if it's a whole tribe. I don't give a rat's behind if it's a tribe that does this. That's some Negropean BS because it serves the same purpose. They make things difficult even for other Nigerians in other countries. And they don't care. And you know who they go hardest on? The ones that they treat the hardest are the ones from their own people, their own language group that don't join them in this foolishness. Congratulations. You are a Negropean. You took the most populous nationality on the continent and ruined their reputation. And then turned around and started trash talking black Americans while in America studying at HBCUs. And didn't have the decency to say, look, I'm from this particular language group. We do that. My opinion does not reflect the opinions of the continent, or even my nationality. They didn't even have the decency to do that, to say that. That's a Negropean. And you see what Igor said. That's not a popular opinion per se. In actuality, many black folks from other nationalities are willing to attest to our creativity. Many of them don't necessarily know about what happened when we built particular black townships throughout the southeastern United States. And they survived and thrived until outside interference managed to come about and ruin that, just like it did on the continent. Many of them don't understand this, but if you tell them the names of the towns and what happened when they were burned down, they will say, wait a minute, that's what happened in our case. But you got Some of them that are willing to disgrace even their own nationalities and make things abnormally and unduly difficult and unfairly difficult for their own nationalities. Trying to score points. Now, do you think they're doing this to score points with their own people? No. They're doing this in order to score points with massa. That's why I call them Negropeans. And I say don't let up on them at all. Give them the mother cuss word blues when you see them. If you see someone of your nationality trash talking FBA, or you see someone from the continent trash talking all the New World diasporan Africans, then you do like Igor did, do like Senor Conga did, and give them the business. Because I'm telling you now, if my people start roasting people from the continent and it's really jokes, I'll say, well, that's not really true. Okay, that joke was kind of funny. It's just not true. But if they start getting serious, I'll tell them, no, see, bro, what you want to do is you want to sit up here and let the colonizer determine our relationship with our own cousins. Would you let some white dude walk in here and tell you and me how we're going to relate to each other? You would not. Well, that's exactly what the hell we're doing when we sit up here and start really, truly trash talking them, and we ain't joking. We don't do that. If you're not a Negropean, then you don't let somebody else that's not of African origin come in and determine how you're going to relate to other Africans. I don't let them determine how I'm going to relate to somebody from that particular ethnic group about which the rest of Nigeria complains. I'll tell you what's going on. They'll tell you what's going on. You get them alone by themselves, just to be fair. A lot of them don't lie because they don't hate you. But I'm just going to tell you on the real. That doesn't mean that some Brit gets to come along and tell me, well, you know, Black Mind, they hate you and they call you an Akata. I'm like, how about you fuck the shuck up, bro? Check this out, colonizer. Do you think that we don't have these discussions? We will discuss this on our own. Thank you very much. And sometimes they might say things like, well, y'all aren't really family. You're just the same race. I mean, just the same color. Is that enough? And I have to say to them, well, you say we're not family, but if we were kidnapped from them, even if some of them participated in the sale before they died, let me remind you that the ones that did that died, even if they did this, is it your business or is it ours? You ain't part of this family. If we don't get to dictate to you how you, the French and the Germans get along with each other and fuck the shuck up, we'll sort this out ourselves. And if you keep on doing this, I'm going to burn your ass publicly. Those are Negropeans, and they're serving the interests of such Europeans that'll come along and try to tell us how to relate to each other. They're letting them do it. They're taking orders from the colonizer in terms of how we're going to relate to each other. And this is so that the colonizer doesn't have to think about it, doesn't have to worry about it. But I'm letting you know now, whenever we unite or whenever we have a solidarity amongst ourselves, the good thing about that is that all of the racists around us are now obvious and evident. You get to tell who's racist consciously and who's racist subconsciously, and even the difference between the two of them, because they see some black solidarity. And I'm not even sitting up and saying that we have to be, I'm not saying that we have to all love each other and always like each other. That's not realistic. There are many times when we do actually love and like each other. That happens a lot. But in the cases when we don't, we still have to understand that our mutual defense and cooperation is necessary. It still is, because we're still surrounded by people that have it in for all of us. It's always like that. Pardon me, I had to go on mute because I was about to sneeze, and I did. And I did not want to scare any of you and give you a heart attacks. So when we're in many places around the world, not every single place, but when we're in many places around the world, it does help to have a type of willingness to look out for each other. I'm going to tell you now, there was a time when one morning when I had to go to work. This is back when we were still teaching long distance. We was teaching from home because of COVID. I remember that. And one morning we had to go into the campuses because of an exam that was going to be given on campus. So we had to get the masks and the gloves and go into work. So my wife and I were getting into the car because her campus was on the way to my campus. The ladies' campus was on the way to the men's campus. And this lady saw my wife and started talking in this broken Arabic that made no mother cuss word sense at all. And she said, jail me. Now, she wasn't using jail as a verb. That's a different word from the noun jail or prison in Arabic. So she was pretty much saying, prison me. Now, I didn't understand her. And I never, ever make an effort to understand broken Arabic. I don't feel a guck while somebody speaks it. It's not my job to learn it. I went through major trouble to learn proper Arabic, the real Arabic. And I still can't get fluent in it because people don't really teach that. They go straight to broken caveman Arabic. That's insulting. It's like if somebody speaks English to you just because they have an accent, but they're speaking it correctly, you turn around and speak broken English to them like they stupid. So I shut people out right off as soon as they do it, no matter the color, race, tribe. Now I don't feel a guck. When Indians and Pakistanis and Bengalis do that, I don't do it to be mean. I shut them out because I just don't understand it. So I can't help them. So I just tell them I don't understand. You can't help you. Sorry. I just keep telling them in real Arabic, I don't understand. I only speak Arabic. But this lady kept on talking. She started crying. Now my wife could speak broken and fluent Amiya Arabic, the slang, but this lady couldn't speak that either at all. Shouts out to DJ and shouts out to Gail at Night for coming through on the Cash App. Thank you both from the bottom of my black heart and from the depths of my black mind. Appreciate that. That is some generosity from both of you. I think the notifications may have come in late. Sorry about that. But yep, I really do appreciate this. I mean that. So what I'm getting at here is that in this situation, my wife called up one of her colleagues that speaks Swahili because it turned out this lady spoke Swahili. Now, I was going to not really do much because I didn't understand. But my wife she said, well, we can't just go to work and not help her. And I said, well, what can we actually do if we don't understand her? I mean, we don't know if she just needs something to eat. We don't know if she's lost. We don't know nothing. But then the lady from Kenya, to whom my wife spoke, translated and she said that they're beating her. And then she said, no, I'm sorry. She said that they're threatening to beat her, but they have not actually beat her. Now, my wife called the police right off the bat because it was a police matter. This lady didn't have her ID, passport, or nothing. She just there. But she reached out to my wife because my wife is black. She walked by me. I didn't know she needed any kind of help or anything. I thought she was probably a new neighbor. And in this country, men and women don't just, hey, how you doing to each other for no reason. You don't do that. But when she saw my wife, it's not because my wife is a woman. It's because my wife is black. She understood. My wife even said it. Yes, she reached out to me because I'm black. This is what happened. We called the police, and we had the lady to wait at a particular spot. And the lady from Kenya reached out to a translator from the embassy that was going to call this lady as well. Then we went to work, my wife and I. About 2 months later, maybe, I saw this lady again. So this time I used a translator on Google Translate because I knew her language was Swahili. And I said to her, we're going to call the lady that spoke Swahili. We're going to have a talk. And we found out where this lady was working. And we walked her back to the host family. We walked her back. And I told the lady, don't be afraid. I said to her, don't be afraid this time, because now we have several people from the continent that are living around this area. If we know where, take us home. Take us to where you live. Yeah, we're going to walk back there with you, because if we all know where you're living and working, you're not going to go through these threats anymore. Believe that. Because now, it was true. I knew of enough Sudanese and northern Nigerians. They ain't scared of nobody. Not like that. Even if they're afraid to stand up to you. Sudanese, same thing. Even if you scared them, they're going to stand up to you. They ain't cowards. And I let her know, it's not just that you got Africans living here. You got Africans that ain't scared. I'm African American. I get kicked out of here for taking up on African. I'm a hero anywhere. What I'm scared of. My wife's people drove the British out and the Italians. My wife is from the Dubahante tribe. She ain't scared of no light-skinned Arab. Sudanese ain't scared. Northern Nigerians ain't scared. You're going to be all right. Now show us where you live and don't be scared anymore. We walked her back and we talked to the family. And we said, hey, hold up. Let me tell you what she said. And the funny thing is that the man, the head of the family, the man had actually worked. He had trained in the United States and become a general in the Saudi army. He was the one that told me that the current Secretary of Defense, I think it was, it's the current Secretary of Defense. I think if you look him up, Secretary of Defense, I think that's a brother. Matter of fact, let me go ahead and do that now. Let me see here. U.S. Secretary of Defense. Let's see who this guy is. If it's the same one now. U.S. Secretary of Defense. That is not what the hell I was looking for. Let's see. We're looking, folks. Who was the current Secretary of Defense? Okay. Wikipedia shows me a brother, Lloyd Austin. That is exactly who it was. Yep. Thank you, Charles Irby. Lloyd Austin. This general pointed to Lloyd Austin and said to me, he was one of the ones that trained my class, actually. He said this to me because he knew that I, a Black American, and my wife, Black Somali American citizen, were there because, and when I spoke, this man knew I was Black. He heard me talk to my wife in English, and he realized that I'm an Onyx. And he pretty much said to both of us, oh, no, she's in good hands. The issue is, and his wife came out and was like, look, I'm sorry. I was the one that said, look, I'll eat you, because she wouldn't do what I asked her to do. And the wife even said she's not mentally well because she lost her daughter just before she came over here. The wife started confessing right off the bat. She said, I never did anything to her, but yeah, I would say, I'm going to eat you because I tell her stuff and she nod her head and just wouldn't do it. I'd ask about it later on and she started talking in Swahili. She knows I don't speak Swahili. Now, most Kenyans speak English as well, so I didn't believe that this woman didn't understand any English. That I did not believe. But then again, she may not have. I mean, she never used a word of English around me, so she maybe did not. But the thing is that at this point, even if she was unwell, the family now understood that she was not completely cut off. She was not by herself. People do understand something about solidarity. I get that. And that's why I say that it is better for us to at least be willing to cooperate with each other for a common defense. If you don't like some if you don't like a particular group of other black folks, which is going to happen, at least be willing to cooperate for a common defense. When any black folks say we ain't finna do that, then that's when I say no. See, that's that Negropean business, with one exception. One exception. When some FBA will say, well, some of them folk got to hold their own nuts because they chose not to participate in this mutual defense. That's when I say, okay, they already chose not to do it. Go ahead and tell them to hold their own nuts. I get it in that case. That is true. But this woman had not done something like that. She had not said something like that. Okay, you know what, Charles Herbert, that makes a sense right there, because this lady was kind of old. Now, I don't know how old the daughter was, but she appeared to me to be somewhat old. I admit that. Was this particular family racist? I doubt it. I doubt that they were. What I do understand is that that dad did not want, he told me this. So this means that that man did not want me to somehow reach out to, to blow the case up, let it make the news, and then have Lloyd Austin calling him up later on, like, say, man, what's this I hear about you messing with or mistreating one of the maids that comes from Africa? What you doing? I don't think he wanted that. Not that they have jurisdiction within Saudi, but the point is that I don't think he wanted any of that at all. I don't think that's what he was looking for. Another thing too that I began to realize was that when thanks for asking. I was just about to mention him, Igor. Yeah, Senor Kang, I was just about to mention my son. When Simba was here and he visited, more of us began to reach out. He and I, from the first, he got here on a Wednesday, and we left the airport Wednesday night. So the next day, Thursday, about the afternoon, we went out and get him his haircut. Went to the mall. He's going to hear this later on, by the way. Salam alaikum, Simba. So we went out to the mall, and security guard, when I went to ask him where the prayer room and the restroom was, security guard said, "Are y'all friends?" And my son said, "I'm his son. That's my dad." And the security guard shook our hands. The security guard was a brother. So the recognizability of my son showed me a different side of us. When I'm by myself and I see some of us and I give the soul brother head nod, because they got the same thing here. They're not mean to me. They oftentimes don't see me giving them the nod. When they do see me get a nod, a lot of times they look over the shoulder. They think I'm speaking to somebody else. Because the rule here is if you see somebody that's black and you don't know them, then you speak to each other even though you don't know each other. You just say salam alaikum. It does not apply between the genders. A black woman is not required to speak to a black man, and a black man required to speak to a black woman that don't know each other. Not because we don't like each other. It's because it's just that men and women got boundaries. We speak to each other about business, if you're related, that sort of thing, if you work together, but you don't just randomly speak to someone of the opposite gender you don't know. You wouldn't do that. So that's what that's about. It's not a gender war. But brothers with giving a head nod when they would see us. Sometimes my son didn't see it, but they would look at him and then see if he was going to see them. And if he didn't, no biggie. Now, I understand, Mr. Conga, about them typos. I get it. So what I'm saying is that there is a notion of Black solidarity that extends beyond Black America. When non-Black folks see that we are willing to at least have a peace between us, an establishment of peace, a greeting between us, the head nod, some sort of solidarity. What this does is that, number one, it sends a signal that we're not atomized. So this means that they can't just go messing with one of us and nobody else says anything. The other thing is that if we have this, and this is a good thing for us to have to the extent that we can, minus groups that insist on not participating. And that has been a few of them that have gone into the US and Canada. Some of that does exist. But what I'm going to say is that when we have this, where people can see that if we see each other, we don't know each other, we'll at least give the head nod. What's good, man? What's happening? Assalamu alaikum. If people can see this, then this is what that does. Number one, I already mentioned that it shows them we're not atomized, so they can't just go and bother and harass us. And I'm not going front. There are some non-Black Saudis here that respect us about us to the point they're trying to identify themselves as us or trying to identify with us. And some of them come from big tribes here. You think, well, you already got a big family. Man, look, them tribes don't always act like a family. That's not true. And they look out for each other, but they don't necessarily always act like a family. But then, you know, you Black, and I mentioned to you, I mentioned on my Patreon something specific that I learned about Black Saudi. You got to get on the Patreon to see that. You got to subscribe to Patreon to find that out. That's why I put stuff that's really worth not putting on here for free. And there's something about Black Saudi that I put on there. And I hope it, I really do hope that it helps you all out. But you got to subscribe, and you're going to have to get that $10 tier a month, because the other one, like I said, it cancels out automatically. And as it should. But when you are in these areas, non-Black folk who see this and are racist subconsciously will try to remind you that there's no racial brotherhood. And they may really not mean any harm. Like I said, I'm talking about the ones that have a subconscious bias. And that's a lot of people. But they still have this nervousness about Black unity and Black solidarity. Now, I don't think there's going to be per se 100% Black unity, but a solidarity, a mutual defense, of course that's possible. Arabs have it. I just told you. Arabs don't like each other. Believe that. But they do have a sense of solidarity where, you know what, at the very least, we can cooperate for each other's mutual defense. And even if we don't like each other and we talk bad about each other, we don't have to betray each other for the enemies. And yet and still they've done this before. So the subconscious racist is going to sit up and say, well, there's no such thing, and it's a stupid idea to have Black unity. And if they're religious, be they Christian or Muslim, but they have this bias, they're going to sit up and tell you that you can't have that because of your religion. No, sir. If your religion is true, then that means you stand against the oppressor with the oppressed. Even if the oppressed are not friends of yours, you stand against the oppressor because they're oppressors. Because wrong is wrong and right is right. But see, they're not ready for you to tell them that. But at the very least, you're able to spot, okay, this fur muck over here he's got a bias with his stank behind. A subconscious bias, but he's got it because some Black folks showed some solidarity in the form of at least a peace greeting and a recognition of each other. Which pretty much shows, you know what, someone comes and bothers you and they're doing it because of, you know, just because you're Black or because you're different. they're going to have something to contend with. And you know what? Maybe they had a right to step to you and they still wind up having to pay because the other black person don't know that they had a right to step to you. I'm going to let you in on a secret about some of these other groups too. These other groups generally don't have, well, George Steele kind of says it. He says they certainly don't, but they code up when necessary. And I'm going to tell you when they code up and when they don't. When they're up in opposition against somebody that is paler than themselves, they don't code up. That's when they sell out. Arabs have sold each other out for Europeans. They've never sold each other out for South Asians or for Africans. They don't do that. Do they have to think about it? They're not even aware of that. You have to point this out to them. That's the subconscious part of it, but they ain't done it. I'm telling you now, if the early 1940s, 1950s TV shows never showed white folks smoking and only showed black people smoking, Arabs wouldn't smoke. You know what? The biggest smokers on the planet are Arab males. That's real. I mean, right now, Muslims in general are calling for a boycott of certain businesses because of the fighting going on between Israel and Palestine right now that's been scaled up again. It's been renewed. It's always there, but October 7th was the renewal of it, a scaling up. Let me tell you all something. The real boycott would be smoking. They don't tell you this, but the majors, I mean, most cigarette manufacturers are owned by a few holders. Different brands, but a few holders. If you really wanted to slow down the aid that goes into Israel, you'd stop smoking. Black folk and Arabs alike would cut the cigarettes out. Stop it. It's a nasty habit. Smells like crap. Worse than crap, actually. But not only that, the money generated by the purchase of cigarettes every year, just within the every day, just within the Middle East, damn near gives 8 million to Israel a day. A day. A day. That's 40 million in a work week, 56 million in a week. That's what the hell it is. Boycotting Starbucks is only a drop in the bucket. But why do they smoke? Okay, the Christians, I guess you'd understand why the Arab Christian smokes. But the Arab Christian is a minority amongst Arabs. Why do the Muslims smoke? Let's call it what the F it is. They saw it on the white man's TV and thought it was cool. That's why. Yep, Charles is right. But what I'm saying, the main point I wanted to make is that they do code up when it comes to somebody else, but not Europeans. That's when they'll sell each other out. And that point, yes, they will sell each other out behind some Europeans. Absolutely. So not every other race is together. It's the same thing with other groups. They're going to sell each other out when they're up against the Europeans. Okay, you know what? This is Massa, so I'm going to obey Massa even against our own interests. Every group's got somebody like that. But when you start to see Black solidarity, if we show it to each other, then other people that we're around, even if they're friends, will show whether or not they are consciously biased, subconsciously biased, or not biased, or biased in our favor, which is rare. Does it exist? Yes, but it's rare. There are Filipinos that are biased in our favor. That exists. There are Indonesians that are biased in our favor. I'm not sure about Malaysians, but the ones who meet us probably do wind up biased in our favor. I mean, Malay Malaysians. I'm not talking about the Chinese Malaysians or the Indian Malaysians. That's a different story. Y'all know about them. They aren't. It's against their culture to be. They ain't got nothing to say about white folk. They ain't got no smoke for them. The Malay people, you can find some who got smoke for Master Zaddy. They call them, I mean, the way to say white person in Malay is just orang putih, white people. But sometimes they'll say that as an epithet and not just a description. Sometimes there are times I hear them talking, I'm like, I want to say, whoa, well, wait a minute. I mean, we're talking about what they did, not their DNA sequence. Come on now. And so that's the thing about it. So I mentioned the ones that don't have a bias, the ones that have a subconscious bias, and then the ones that might even have a bias that is in our favor. They do exist. But I'm going to state this: the ones that have a conscious bias, when they see that you've got this solidarity where you at least speak to some other black folk, and you might not be necessarily trying to uh, become their best buddies, automatically trying to marry their sister or their brother. It's not like that, but you at least got the solidarity. You speak, okay, look, you know what? Something goes down, they're not coming after you easily. When you show just that much, that head nod, the ones that are with you that are not black, but they are consciously biased, are also going to show it in that case. Do you know him? No, not yet. Well, why did you speak to him? Because we are of a similar origin. What does that mean? You see me walking around speaking to every white guy, or you see me speaking to every Indian, or you see me speaking to every Arab you see? Now, here's the thing. If it's a white guy, and they say that, you say, no, because y'all are the majority. It's like in Africa, I wouldn't have to speak to everybody. But here or in the Middle East or, somewhere where we're not the majority, yeah. If you and I were in Jamaica right now, or in Barbados right now, and you saw a white person, you give the head nod. You would assume they're not even from there. And you give the head nod. And y'all might talk and bond. Well, this is the reverse. If it is an Indian or a Pakistani telling you this, and they say, do you see me speaking to every other day CIC? That's when you say, not every other, but if your numbers were fewer, you damn sure would. And if it's an Arab, oh my God, when they say that, just go ahead and nod your head. Yes, say, yes, I do actually. If you know that they're Arab when you look at them, because not every Arab has the same look. But you would say to them, yeah, I mean, if you know that they're Arab and they know you're Arab, yes, yeah, I see y'all nod at each other, speak to each other. Absolutely. You do it, so I'm going to do it. Fuck the shuck up. So everybody gets exposed. And that is because, you see, just as I've told you that these groups are used to selling out each other when it comes to the Europeans, but not so much when it comes to the interest of anyone darker than their own average complexion. They don't sell out in that case. But as I've stated, just like they'll do that because they are their own version of the Negropean, of the banana or the coconut. These groups tend to refer to each other by these names oftentimes: apples or bananas or coconuts, things that are of another color on the outside and white on the inside. Yes, Asians refer to each other as bananas if one of them acts like they're white and is politically white. As much as we look at the community and say, you want to be white, you know what? If one of them is a little too culturally white for their own taste, the others will call them a banana. If an original American just completely sells out, the others will call them an apple. Red on the outside, white on the inside. That's what they'll say. I didn't make these terms up. People from South Asia will call one of their people a coconut. Brown on the outside, white on the inside. I know, it's a trip, right? They all got these terms. We said Oreo. That's what we called folks back in the day, but we use that term for things that did not involve selling out. But in any case, when these other groups of people see that you're not a Negropean, you then expose the apple or the banana or the coconut in them. Not to compare them to food based on their DNA. I'm talking about the same sellout tendency amongst them. You expose a sellout tendency in their sellouts. So if anything, you actually are doing their own ethnic groups a favor. Absolutely. And I want to give a shout out to Mr. Conga, because, you know, you use a lot of vocabulary and I have to sit up and learn some of these things or remember some terms that I've forgotten. And other times I learn new terms from you. And here I am, a native speaking English teacher. Eurohilic or Eurohilic, I'm not sure exactly how it's pronounced, but I learned that from you, unless you meant to say Europhilic, which I would understand in that case too. Now, if you meant to say Europhilic, that was an excellent creation of a new term based on existing prefixes and suffixes. That is a valid thing to do in the English language. But you did it. Yes, they too, because they have a concept of the banana from amongst themselves. They also benefit when we turn around and we say, hey, look, you know what? I'm going to say hello to this other black person, and let's see what this person over here says about it. And then your friend of that particular persuasion that you thought was your friend is now sitting up and saying, my God, I'm so sick of you always speaking to everybody that's every time you see somebody black, you wave at them. And he starts sounding exactly like one of the Wyatts. And I mean a Wyatt supremacist. Yeah. Congratulations. You just exposed them to their own people. Because what that means is that if all of them were in a black country and they spoke to each other, that would be fine. But if all of them are in a white country and they speak to each other, they think that's racist too. You just exposed them. And in a white country, they might still all speak to each other. But I wanted you to pay attention to that. And I'm not going to go too deep into this, but and you know what? Here's the funny thing, man. Let me tell you this, Charles. A lot of Palestinians actually do, the ones that are journalists oftentimes, or the intellectuals, do in fact have a sense of solidarity for anybody that's being oppressed. The Sudanese, the Congolese, the Rohingyans, Central African Republicans, the intellectuals amongst them. So this shows you that this guy clearly is not actually learning about what the intellectuals amongst his people are discussing. Now, the coverage of these things is dismal, and this is why a lot of people may not know about them. Like, I don't even know what the latest news is in Sudan. I just know there is a conflict because the Sudanese are telling me about it. DRC, I don't hear much about it except that there is a conflict. So I do understand why people know less about them. I get it. But for the Palestinians, the ones who really care, they would have actually talked to their own intellectuals and would have known something. And he would have been able to sympathize with these folks right off the bat and tell you about them instead of you telling him. You see, the Palestinian intellectuals and journalists will tell you and me about these conflicts in Sudan, the DRC, and the Rohingya and give us the recent updates. They'll school us on it because they learn about it. This guy here actually missed the mark even amongst his own people. And I don't even blame people for being outraged on behalf of the Palestinians. What's happening to them is outrageous. And those doing this to them are beast. Two-legged beast. Even animals wouldn't do this to other animals. These are demons. And I don't apologize for saying it. But sometimes when you sympathize with people, you can't let everyone know you sympathize with them. Sometimes, in order for more Palestinians to learn true empathy, you have to act around them like you don't empathize with them. You have to act around them like, you know what, you don't care. You wouldn't do what the enemies are doing, but so what if somebody else is doing this to them? You know, or tell them to hold their own nuts. Around some of them, you got to act this way, and then you might get around their cousin who's conscious and actually awake, not just woke, but actually awakened and aware. And you can admit to them, you know what? Yeah, my heart actually breaks, and I've had nightmares and woken up with tears on my pillow behind the nightmares that I've had about what's going on with y'all. You may have to act differently between cousins because one of them only cares about himself. He just wants the white world, including Israel, to accept him so that they can go and integrate like little white folk. He don't give a guck about how the black Palestinians get treated. And then his cousin is actually aware and awakened. And he's like, no, I want to see people be treated fairly in general. And that includes you. There are times you have to hide your sympathy for people for their own good. And that's what's happening now. There are times we got to hide our sympathy. And so in any case, I've gone on for long enough. I need to pray. It's late here, so I'm going to try to go and get to bed somewhat early. And because I have to be at work tomorrow. Our work day is Sunday through Thursday. Work week is Sunday through Thursday. When I do the Black Manosphere show of the week, that's going to be an upload, maybe a premiere, or maybe it'll just be available not as a premiere, but it's already recorded. I'll edit it, add the images and everything. But I will go more into specifically the black populations of the future and what's going on. But I wanted you to understand something about these Negropeans and how you can tell the Negropeans. They do anything that continues to help the gender war in the form of dysgenic breeding and the dual mating strategy that is currently messing up the black population, not only in the United States, but in the Anglosphere of the New World. And I wanted you to understand that these panda bears and simps are Negropeans. They're hurting the race. They're absolutely hurting the race. And I also wanted you to understand that this Negropean phenomena is not one that ever benefited black men. Really, it did not benefit black women, but it doesn't seem like we were even capable of thinking of something like this, except when we had DLPS as fathers, Daddy's Little Princess Syndrome. Not from loving daughters, but from thinking that they deserve better than what everybody else in the world could possibly get. Thinking that they deserve that which is unrealistically good for this world. That also has happened. And that doesn't even help the daughters in the long run. And the last thing that I wanted to point out about these Negropeans is that they're not even always Negro. In actuality, many other groups of people have more of their own versions of the Negropean than our race has. While their systems and their structures have remained more in place and a bit more intact, relatively speaking, depending on where they come from, their dysfunction is still not a joke. It is nothing to sneeze at. The difference is that those of them who leave their home countries to migrate, whether it's to Africa or to North America or the Caribbean or to South America generally leave the dysfunctional ones behind. And so when they are in our continent or in our diaspora, they appear to us to have their stuff together because Massa Zaddy, through his consulates and embassies in their home countries, have filtered out the foolishness. And so we don't see it. But they actually have offered less of a resistance in many cases, far less of a resistance to than in many cases than what our people have offered. Thereby, by default, having a hell of a lot more of their own versions of this. So the Negropeans ain't always Negro. Sometimes they've been Indopeans, Sinopeans, Arapeans, Farsapians. Yeah, it's happened a lot. So with that being said, I appreciate you all listening. And I'm going to tell you all that if you want to know more about the history of not just gynocracy, but hyenocracy amongst our people, you can look at that book and tell me more about Daughters of the Trade than I could tell you, because you all have access to read it there. But you can also check in with Senor Igor Mendonça Kanga here, and he can tell you more. And Mr. Kanga, I need to go into my email. My wife was visiting, so I've been quite busy showing her around my city, and then we had to make this long drive to get to Bahrain, and then come back and make a long drive to get back, and she just left. So I haven't been able to check up on them. And plus, we also had exams too. So I haven't been able to check up on them, but I really appreciate the links that you and S. Jacques have sent. And sometimes Galen Knight has sent me certain links. I'm going to leave on this note and tell you all that you all can check with Mr. Kanga for more history about the effects of hyenocracies that we have suffered and what's happened back home. And I want you all to know that eventually, at some point, we're going to have to give Galen Knight a lot of credit that we've been giving elsewhere. But that a lot of the efforts to hold ladies accountable, or certain ladies accountable for things they've done wrong, has been hers. And there's only so much that I can say now. There's only so much that I can even know. But I want you all to know that you should check her channel out. Absolutely. Mind-blowing. And I'll see you all tomorrow in the evening time, your time, for the Black Manosphere Show of the Week. And I thank you all for tuning in from the bottom of my black heart and from the depths of my black mind. As always, Black heterosexual non-select male power, because they don't like in the Black patriarchy, until extinction of Judgment Day. Thank you all for flying again with us here at Jet Black Airways, where jet black is also a verb. Keep jetting black with us until the wings and the wheels fall off. Gender justice forever.
I'm here to say, hear me now. This is a soul fire production.